Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to cover top in a little more detail. I briefly mentioned top in a previous video. Top displays a list of processes and their attributes, providing updates in real time. The default set of statistics and fields can be configured and saved to a configuration file so that your customizations are persistent. In addition to providing information about process utilization, top also has the ability to perform tasks against processes, such as changing nice values or terminating processes. Before we get started, depending on your knowledge level, you may want to check out my video on process basics, as some of the concepts come up in this video. I won't be providing much explanation. Okay, so let's get started. Running the command by itself gives a lot of the same information as we get from the PS command. And so here, running with the defaults, these values refresh every 3 seconds. Above the process list, top displays some statistics about the system. First, we get the current uptime, the number of users logged in, and the load average. Moving on to the next line, we have the task field describing the number of running processes and breaking down the number of each in the listed categories. The next line shows the current CPU load and breaks down the time spent running in various states. A quick run through the list. US is user, SY is system, time spent running kernel processes. NI for nice, time spent running nice user processes. ID, idle, time spent in the kernel idle handler. WA is IO wait, time waiting for IO completion. I'll add here that there are various things that can cause IO wait, but in my experience, it is frequently related to CPU waiting on storage. HI, time spent servicing hardware interrupts. SI, time spent servicing software interrupts. And ST, time stolen from this VM by the hypervisor. And the fourth row represents physical memory in MIB or megabits, showing total, free, and used, which are self-explanatory. Buffer cache, which I'll simplify, is memory allocated to store data to speed up I/O. It'll be sent back to the free pool if the system demands more memory for new or existing processes. The final row represents information about swap, which I'm not going to get into a detailed explanation here. And then going through the fields in the header here, many of these were covered in the basic processes video. For the most part, have the same meaning as the PS command. One notable exception is the %CPU field, which is a little different than what is reported by the PS command. In this case, it represents CPU time since the last time top refreshed. Remember that the value reported by PS is CPU time divided by the amount of time the process has been running. Top has a lot of useful toggles and options. Some of the options that can be passed on the command line will start top with the option applied and can be toggled interactively. A couple of the interactive functions we can form from top are killing processes or renicing them. And I'll run through a few of them real quick here. So if I press the F key, I could actually go through and I could select fields that I wanted to enable or disable. You can see what's enabled with the asterisk there. If I hit the R key, I can provide a process ID to renice. And I'll just hit escape to cancel. I can hit the K key, and here I can provide a process ID to kill. And of course, this all depends upon the level of access. So I'll hit escape again to cancel. And we can use the up and down arrow keys so that we can kind of traverse the list. So we can use page up and page down and the end key to get all the way to the bottom. So usually though, we want to see, so I'll hit home to get back to the top. We usually want to see what's generally using up the most resources when we're using top. Typically, especially if we're having some kind of contention with memory or CPU. And so kind of to make it more convenient, we have ways of filtering. So for example, I can actually run top and I can press the U parameter and I could pass a user. Then I'm only going to return processes for that user. I can also hit the U key and change that interactively. So I can leave it blank to toggle it back to all users. Then I could hit U and I could provide a specific user here and show only processes for root. We'll go back to showing all processes. And there's another handy way to filter here where I can press the O key and then I can filter on a field. So I can filter for systemd. And then I get all processes with systemd in the name. And then I can press the equal key to toggle that off. So I'm seeing all processes again. And so one more quick handy option here is I can press the I key and I can filter out idle processes. So those are no longer shown. Or I can toggle them back on. And so a lot of these, like I said, can be passed when we run the command on the command line so that we launch top like this automatically, or we can use them interactively. And a way we can get some help is with the H key. And then we can get some of those toggles here. Of course, we always have the man page available too, but this is handy because we can check out what's going on interactively for just a quick refresher or reminder. Another toggle I like to use is actually when we see our third row here, we only see the total for the whole machine as far as CPU. We can actually hit the 1 key, and then that's going to show us each available CPU on the system and utilization separately here. Of course, by default, as I explained earlier, we get those different statistics for each CPU, but we can also toggle that and get a different representation using the T key. So here we would get the set of brackets and then the pipe symbol representing the amount of utilization we're seeing. So all the way to the end bracket there, the closing bracket would be fully utilized. Then we have this one, which I've hit again. We don't really have any load on the system, but this would show like a solid bar, like a highlighted bar, like kind of like we see in our header where it's highlighted across the screen. And so then if I press it again, we actually get rid of that field. Then we can go back to the default where we see the various statistics. And another toggle I want to briefly mention is the ability to show threads. This is controlled by H. So that's Shift H actually. And so now we're seeing threads instead of just processes or task here. I'm not going to go into the full detail here and explain all the nuance, but I'll differentiate a little bit here and just mention I'm not speaking of the number of cores or logical threads tied to the CPU. Instead, these are threads from the perspective of a process that may have multiple threads associated with it. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. And so actually I'm going to toggle that back so that we have this as our setting. And as I mentioned in the intro, we have the ability to save our config so that we can launch top, maybe with some of our favorite presets. And so we can actually save that to a config file, and that config file is going to be in our home directory in the .config/procps/toprc is the name of the file. It may be different on different distros. That's what I'm seeing on this version of Debian, which is Debian 12. But I'm going to go ahead and save that, and it shows us that location. And so now if I quit out of top and I run top again, I have my CPU toggle already saved. And so as stated in the man page, there's a general format to this file, but it's not really intended to be manually edited. You can. That's up to you how you want to handle that. I think it's a little easier just to open up top and hit W again to save your changes after you make some toggles. And if things are really messed up, you could always just delete that file to get yourself back to a clean config, make the changes again, and then save again. And so I will demo a couple quick changes here though, and then we can see the effects by closing and opening top. So I'll go ahead and hit D. And I actually usually like to run top with a 1 second delay to get a faster refresh. And so we'll speed that refresh up. Then I'll go ahead and save. And I'll quit out of top and run top again. And we can see that we still have that faster refresh time. And we can see, that it's saved to one, set to 1. So I'll go ahead and quit out here. And I will just remove that file. And if I launch top again, we can see that we're back to default config, back to the normal delay time. So there you go on that. And one last thing real quick is we do have the ability to change our color scheme and play with that. So if you hit Shift and Z, now here we got our options to change the colors, and we have kind of our legend here to tell us what's going on. Currently, I am focused on T, which is the task information, which will come up as red. I really don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 7 there. We'll just leave that at white. Then I'll hit S. I'll hit 4. And now we've got a blue color for our summary data. And so I'll hit M and change that to green for our prompt color. And I will change our column headers to this nice magenta color. All right, and then if I hit enter to commit, and there I could save this if I wanted. So if you don't like the default colors, you can always change it that way. So go ahead and quit out of here. There is a little bit, I guess, fancier program, HTOP, which is basically top and curses. It's got some different functions and stuff like that. So I thought I'd toss that out there and show you. I'm not going to run through it. You can always check out the man page. And if you're really interested, I could give a quick run through. So there's quite a bit more to top as far as the fields that can be changed, and Mail contains some tricks near the end in its own section. Some things that you can kind of mess around with to change the behavior of top. I want to just highlight it, some of the basic functions and customization options to tie in with the last video relating to basic process management. A future video, I may expand on some of the options and additional features available in top and discuss their relevance in relation to other tools I haven't covered as far as troubleshooting specific aspects of performance. But for now, I think I'm going to move on to something else just to mix it up a little bit to keep it interesting. And so that's all I have for this video. If you found this helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Thanks for watching.